Roosevelt Vanderbilt National Historic Sites logo. 1930s school bus with school children getting out, going into a brick schoolhouse.
Hello, I'm Park Ranger Mike Wardy. I'm standing in front of Evelyn Middle School here in Hyde Park. Originally, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Junior and Senior High School. This is one of 3 schools that FDR dedicated in 1939. The construction of 3 schools were part of the Works Progress Administration.
1930s.
Though a great many schools were built throughout the country during the 1930s, FDR's participation and the federal government's role in education was much less defined. FDR believed education was important, but allowing the local community to control the school's operation was equally as important. Education were key components of the New Deal organizations, like the CCC, the WPA, and the NYA.
Camp number 1.
FDR's New Deal did not increase the federal government's participation in education on a local classroom setting, but it did educate youth and young adults within the context of New Deal programs and organizations.
Surrounded by young men at a civilian
Though
conservation
FDR's New Dealers were often at odds with traditional schools, the New Deal did reach the neediest students by teaching them in settings other than traditional
standing on either
schools.
side of an easel painting.
These programs allowed students that were in school to remain in school and demonstrated that students previously not experienced success in school only needed to be given a chance in alternative settings with effective instruction.
With a black 1930s
of all aspects of life that the Great Depression affected, the most was education. As homes lost their values or were foreclosed on altogether, many school districts saw a decline of the tax revenue that funded the local school districts.
For the auction.
In turn, programs had to be cut. Staff pay slashed, or staff reductions were put in place to offset lack of funding.
1930s
especially hard hit were the rural school districts. Retrenchment became the buzzword of the day for budget cutbacks and decreases in teacher salaries. Poor school districts closed their doors, and black students facing racism, poverty, and neglect were all but forgotten. School funding became an issue for another reason. More youth were staying in school because, just like their parents, they could not find jobs to help support the family either.
A young boy,
even jobs as simple as being a newsboy, were hard to come by. It was easier to stay in school. Teacher jobs were affected as well. Programs that teachers spent years building deteriorated. Teachers had to deal with food insecurity of students and their families. Supplies became hard to get. Buildings were in decline. Furthermore, wages and benefits were cut or not given at all. Teachers fought against retrenchment vigorously. This led to a rise in union membership twofold. Teachers fought not just for their rights, but pushed for redistributing wealth fairly to all schools. What did FDR's New Deal do to help education? When young men joined the CCC, they were expected to take classes. 90% of enlistees took advantage of the educational opportunities. Reading rooms and libraries were established. Teaching jobs were filled by out-of-work teachers and college students. The CCC also developed curricula for adult students in need of remedial education. It also provided youth with programs such as vocational, academic subjects, health and citizenship and safety classes.
A sign that says
National Youth Administration helped kids stay in school or college. The NYA paid for part-time jobs to help the families for food and expenses to keep kids in school. For out-of-work school youth, it provided training, placement, and recreation. By 1942, the NYA helped 1 million youth with aid. The Works Progress Administration hired 40,000 unemployed teachers to conduct literacy, occupational training, and nursery school programs. The program taught over 1 million to read. FDR also ushered in the GI Bill for returning soldiers. This is still in effect today as an opt-in service with men and women with at least 2 years of active service. In the end, many lasting programs were created. The WPA Emergency Education Program for young children and their parents served as a model for the Head Start program that began in the 1960s. The WPA Free Hot Lunch Program for needy children was a forerunner of the later federally funded school lunch programs. It was not until LBJ and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 that provided the aid that FDR wanted, but also provided more federal control of the schools that FDR did not want. FDR's New Deal programs bypassed many of the local authorities during the tenure, using federal agencies to aid education. Many things came from his ideas that we talked about earlier that are still in place today. Many of the divisions in fairness between school districts still exist today as the country strives to provide the best education it can to the youth of the United States.
National Park Service logo.